Good morning, good morning, good morning out there. Hi there, this is Jessica Perrone, HerFinIQ, and this is the Her Investing Coffee Talk. I'm broadcasting to you via Facebook, via YouTube, via LinkedIn, and I'm just so excited. I'm so excited because guess what? Last week we reached 1,000 viewers. I am so ridiculously excited and so proud of all these women that want to learn and practice the language of investing. I'm so proud of you guys. Oh my gosh. So words are getting out. But not only was last week at 1,000, but all of the videos, which you can see, all the recordings that you can see on my website, all of them are up in the 900s, and 3 weeks ago it's also at 1,000. So it means that not only were people watching last week's episode, they were binge watching the episodes too, and that is just ridiculously exciting. So thank you guys for continuing your support and watching my show. It just makes me feel so stinking good. So we have a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to get started. And I know a lot of people are on spring break, and if you're tuning in on spring break, we're going to keep this pretty short. Hopefully, I might go down a couple rabbit holes here, so I'm going to try to keep it a little short, on the shorter side. So let me introduce myself again. I'm Jessica Perrone. I'm the founder of HerFinIQ. I am also your host on today's Her Investing Coffee Talk. I'm a columnist. I have articles that I write out there, and I'm an educator. I have a really cool curriculum that teaches women about money and about investing. And my May classes are posted. So if you are interested in taking your journey outside of the coffee talk, please feel free to check out my classes as well. And so with that said, we're going to go right into today's show. So grab your identifying investment worksheet. You can actually download it from the Linktree. Oh my goodness, the Linktree link in the event summary for the show. And did you guys know it's April, right? It's mid-April. And did you guys know that April is the best month for stocks historically? I don't know if you guys knew this, but there may be some tailwinds after March's strong gains, but the S&P 500 has gained an average of 1.7% in all Aprils going back to 1945. Yeah, 1945. There is also a saying about May, which I'm going to have to just let you know about this. There's also a saying about sell in May and go away. That was definitely a saying I heard on Wall Street all the time. But we'll see this year. We'll see. There's a lot of undercurrents happening in the news, so we may see some volatilities continuing through the summer. So April showers bring May flowers. So I guess you guys can guess what I am inspired by this week. Let me give you a little hint. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow with civil bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row? Yes, you guessed it. I am talking and thinking about my garden. I know last week I was talking about my poor little daffodils, how they went down with the freeze and they came back. Well, my garden is starting to come alive. And I am planning on going to Home Depot HD this weekend to pick up some flowers and shrubs and start doing some gardening in my gardens. And last week or the week before, I can't remember now, but I actually went to Ace Hardware. That's actually a private company. You can't invest in Ace Hardware. And I went and got some fertilizer and weed killer for my garden. Please do not judge me. For about 10 years, I struggled with doing apple cider vinegar for my gardens to kill weeds. And let me tell you, this year I'm actually using weed killer. Please don't judge me. I gave up and I went mainstream. Just I don't use a lot of it, just here and there, just on those weeds I know that you got to kill all the way down to the roots, or else they're gonna spread. So yes, if you are interested in keeping it a little bit more organic, you can do vinegar, but you have to do it on a super hot day. There can't be any rain. Yeah, yes. And you need to use industrial strength vinegar. Yeah, all those random things that I know about from my farming days. But going on, so so I was like, okay, so I got my fertilizer, that's a private company, and then I looked at my weed killer, right? And the brand that I ended up buying was the Roundup, and that is owned by Monsanto. And it turns out that Monsanto was actually acquired by Bayer in 2018, and their stock ticker is BAYRY. And believe it or not, I think we talked about this actually when we were talking about allergy season. Bayer is actually in the healthcare sector. So the fertilizer I had bought is this Bio Advanced brand. And it turns out that the Bio Advanced brand is owned by a private company. So you know what I did? I did a really quick search about the top fertilizer stocks out there. And I found a recent Yahoo Finance article that mentioned 3 of their top fertilizer stocks. And let me let you know about these. Let you know about these. I'm so eloquent, but I'm entertaining, right? And I guess that all of it matters. So we have Nutrien, and that's NTR, materials sector. We have Mosaic, that ticker is MOS, also in the materials sector. And we have CF Industries, that ticker is CF, and that is also in the material sector. If you are interested in learning more about these stocks, definitely check out that Yahoo article, Yahoo Finance article. Just Google Yahoo Finance fertilizer stocks, and you will find that. So, of course, knowing me, I went down my own personal rabbit hole when I was looking at, what after, spraying my fertilizing my garden and everything. I'm like, wow, okay, what other products do I have in my garage? So I actually went to my garage and I pulled out all of my gardening products and I started looking at the labels, right? I started looking at the labels and I'm like, oh, okay, I have Miracle Grow for potting soil. I'm like, okay. And I took a picture of the label so I could bring it inside and do some research. And then I took a picture of my Scott's Rapid Grass Seed. And okay, I'm like, okay. And I took a picture of it. So then, of course, I come back into my house and there's some other things in there. And I didn't go down that rabbit hole today, but you also have like the blowers and the mowers and all those other art items that you use in the garden too. I think I'm actually going to use those in a separate broadcast because there's a lot of things I want to get to today. But again, you can go down that rabbit hole as well. So what I was interested to find out is that Miracle Grow for potting soil and Scott's Rapid Seed Grass Seed was actually both products by the same company, and that's Scott's Miracle Grow, ticker SMG, in materials. Yeah, so we covered quite a few materials sector stocks today when looking at our garden. Yes, we did. And I encourage you to go through your garage too. You can even do this with your kids. Yes, just start going through your garage and look at the products that are in there, right? And if you want to even like further things, like I said, you can look at, you can look at tools, you can look at the hammers, you can look at the brands, all the equipment in there. And that's not typically, I guess, I don't want to make too big of a generalization because I know the women in my family all are very familiar with the tools in our garages. Yes, we had a very handy dad and he sort of made sure we all knew how to use every single tool in that garage. But I'm sure that's not typically the domain of us lovely ladies. So I would love for you to go outside your comfort zone and look at those products that you use or that the family uses that maybe you do not personally use on an everyday basis. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Oh, I also wanted to just say a little word of caution. Now, we are talking about seasonal stocks, right? Seasonal stocks. Seasonal stocks are stocks that have times of year where their sales are up. Think of like UGG boots in the winter. Think of Campbell's soup in the winter, right? Like we have all of these different types of brands and products that have their seasonality. And a lot of companies have actually diversified across seasons. So they do have offerings for different seasons. So when you are investigating these stocks, definitely make sure that they are diversified. Or what you want to do is really familiarize with the pattern of, the stock goes up X time a year and it goes down X time a year, because there are patterns in different types of seasonal stocks. Okay. So oh, hey, Kendra, thank you so much for stopping by. I love to see you, and speedy recoveries to you. I'm so proud of you, girl, for sure. Hey, Minuet, thank you so much for showing up. It is so good to see you. I know, Minuet, you are a pretty handy gal as well, for sure. So it may be springtime in our season, but on Wall Street, it's the beginning of earnings season. And earnings season typically gets kickstarted with reports from the banks. And we got a mixed bag this week. Yes, we really did. And so and it's been a mixed bag with JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and PNC, missing their guidance. Yeah, they missed their earnings, but banks like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, they exceeded expectations. And Citigroup, and I was actually looking at Citigroup, and I was rooting Citigroup on because of their CEO, Jane Fraser. I really wanted her to rock it. I really did. I'm like here in the background going, go, Jane, go. Yeah, I'm a dork. I know. But she did. They killed it this past quarter too. So give yourself a pat on the back, Jane. You did it. You should be proud of yourself, girl. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of bankers, did you know that entry-level truckers now make as much money as entry-level bankers? Did you guys? Yeah, isn't that crazy? This is from Bloomberg last Friday. And let me just read it because I really love the way they wrote this. So let me just read this to you, okay? So it goes, sure, if you're a banker, this is probably upsetting. Unless you studied at the University of American Samoa, your education probably cost a lot more and took a lot longer than learning to drive a truck. Then again, truckers often have to buy or lease their trucks, which can cost as much as a college education, only without student loans or legacy admission policies to help. And then they go on to say that they go on to talk about, also, somebody hauling stuff from a factory to Walmart. A frontline soldier in our forever supply chain wars is at least as valuable as somebody, say, churning SEC filings into a research report and grades Apple a conviction buy. So skip college and become a trucker? How would you feel about that? Skip it and become a trucker. I don't know about that, but hey. At least you get to see America, and at least your hours are limited, right? They have like all of the worker rules for truckers, right, for safety and whatnot. And those first year bankers, yeah, they work long hours. So we'll see if more people become truckers. So talking about the financial sector and banks. So Seeking Alpha came out with an article highlighting some of the financial ETFs. Yes, we're talking about the financial sector. And I love to talk about ETFs. So if you have any questions about ETFs, definitely check out my other broadcasts. So here are their top ETF leaders in the financial sector. The first one that they're talking about is the Financial Select Sector Spider ETF. That ticker is XLF. Then they also have iShares US Financial Services ETF. That is IYG. And then they also highlight Vanguard Financials ETF, VFH. As well as Fidelity MSCI Financials Index, that is FNCL, and Invesco KBW Bank ETF, and that ticker is KBWF. Okay, so speaking of ETFs, recently I've been talking a lot about sectors that when there are recessionary pressures, right, they actually do better. Now, it was funny because I believe that I talked about this last week, right? Last Thursday. And then last Friday, Seeking Alpha actually came out with this article that really highlighted what the smart money, they call it the smart money, or what investors are doing to prepare and sort of to make sure that their monies are quote unquote safe in volatile markets. So this is what they wrote. They said Wall Street has been on edge lately with financial markets roiled by a host of factors: yield curve inversion, rising inflation, rate hikes, and a possible recession and geopolitical tensions. In this environment, it's no surprise that ETFs focused on defensive stocks have become popular, pushing several to all-time record highs. Okay. In particular, investors have poured into utilities, right? Like we mentioned, the last thing that you're going to stop paying for is utilities, right? You need your electric, you need your water, right? You need your gas. Yeah, you need your utilities. Okay, so utilities, and they're talking about the utility select sector spider ETF, that's XLU. They are talking about consumer staples, right? Those are the must-haves. Those are your like toilet papers, right? Your cleaning supplies. These are things that are going to be the last thing to go if you're trying to save money, right? Now, you might do like a more generic brand, right? As opposed to, well, my kids would never let me not get the extra soft Charmin. I swear. So many other things would come off of our list before the extra soft Charmin would come off. And actually, this is actually a funny fact. I don't know if you guys know about this, but the Charmin brand does not use recycled pulp. And they make no excuses about this either, because the recycled pulp does not make for as soft toilet paper. Yeah, you heard it here. You heard it here. All this random stuff that is in my head that I just have stored. Yeah, most random stuff up there. But hey, that's what makes me so entertaining. Hopefully, you think I'm entertaining. I think I'm entertaining. My kids don't think I'm entertaining, but hopefully you think I'm entertaining. Otherwise, you would keep coming back, right? Okay, so anyhow, going back to consumer staples, we have the Consumer Staples Select Spider ETF, that's XLP, and we also have healthcare, right? So if you need to still go to the doctor, right? You still need to take your prescriptions, your medications. You have allergies, you need to take your allergy medicine, right? You're kind of getting what I'm talking about. So the healthcare select sector ETF XLV. There you go. So, and these are all things that we were talking about last week, and it's so neat to see, the concepts that we're talking about in these shows getting picked up by the mass media. I love that. Okay, so speaking of the healthcare sector and health in general, yeah, I think that, and I'm not sure about this, but I'm definitely watching for signs that COVID may be back. I really started watching the situation in China, and with all the lockdowns and whatnot, and now I'm seeing more headlines here in the States too. So for example, the federal mask mandate for public transit has been extended for another 2 weeks because of upticks. And there's also surging COVID cases in New York too. And so they're talking about this new highly contagious BA.2 version. And it is causing an uptick, and we're even seeing cancellations hit Broadway, right? So, I am definitely watching for this new COVID strain and seeing how it affects us here in the States. But in China news, I really do like to look at international news because you can see tea leaves coming, right? So, for example, there was one headline from yesterday that really caught my attention. And you might think I'm a complete dork on this, but I don't mind. Think I'm a dork, right? I love news and I love trends, and this is one that really super caught my eye. And it was from Trade the News, and it was from yesterday. And it is actually a China headline. And it's China March power consumption year over year, 3.5% versus 16.9%. That is considerably lower, right? And then you see headlines like these that sort of support this data. So we have out of Bloomberg, these two headlines both came out of Bloomberg today. One has to do with China's network of delivering everything from electric parts to raw materials to the national factories has grounded to a halt as COVID-19 restrictions leave hundreds of thousands of truck drivers caught in a web of quarantine controls. Okay, so they're having supply chain disruptions in China, and then plant closures. Okay, more than 30 Taiwanese companies, including Megatron and MacBook maker Quanta Computer, have now halted production in the electronics hub of Eastern China to comply with local COVID-related restrictions, spelling more trouble for an already fragile global tech supply chain. Yeah, we're seeing these headlines coming out of China now. And it gives me a little bit of anxiety. It gives me, a little bit of anxiety of what is going to happen, because we've already seen something like this happen. We've seen the closures in China and how they affect our supply chain. So we're definitely going to be watching COVID, right? And seeing if this strain comes to the US, the developing strains that are already here as they morph and change, and the supply chain disruptions. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching for those too. Talking about supply chain disruptions, guess what? $10 for a pack of butter. Yeah, that's what my friend told me yesterday. I was like, shut the front door. I couldn't believe it. $10 for a pack of butter. And I made a joke. I was like, maybe it'll be cheaper to just buy the cow. But then I actually had a really interesting thought. This is where my brain goes. I'm like, you know what? So many companies are trying to, so many retailers are trying to cut out the middleman, right? Because the more times that a product changes hands, the more the price increases, right? And I was actually thinking, I'm like, maybe I want to go directly to the farmer. Maybe I want to go to a local farmer and try to get butter and cheese. Yeah, it might take a little bit more time, but it might be a really super fun excursion to do with your family. Yeah, go and get some local, cheese and butter and milk. Yeah, I thought that was a fun idea. And then I was like, you know what if there was an app where, they could you could go directly to the local farms and say, okay, what do you have there? Okay, buy it. And then you can either go pick it up or you could have it DoorDash to you. Now that would kind of take the fun out of it, but you kind of get my idea. You get my idea, right? Okay, so going back to the $10 pack of butter, it's really no surprise. Data this week showed that U.S. consumer prices rose by 8.5% in March, the most since 1981. And this gauge has historically run about 40 basis points above the Fed's preferred inflation measure, which its policy target is based on. And you guys might have actually heard a term this weekend. It's called core inflation. Okay. And I actually wanted to define this for you guys because I heard a lot about it in the news. And I'm like, my viewers probably want to hear a little bit about this. And it is a microeconomics concept. So proud of you guys here listening to your macroeconomics. So we have core inflation, and this is according to Investopedia. I love Investopedia. The core inflation is the change in the cost of goods and services, but does not include those from the food and energy sectors. Got that? Not from food and energy sectors. Food and energy prices are exempt from this calculation because their prices can be too volatile or fluctuate wildly. Core inflation is important because it is used to determine the impact of rising prices on consumer income. How about that? How about that? Don't you guys feel so much smarter? So now when you hear on the news them talking about core inflation, you know what that means. Don't you feel so smart? I am so proud of you because I know you are a smart cookie for sure. Speaking of inflation, I saw this headline. It was on Trade the News about Fed Waller. He talked about this after the inflation data came out. He said inflation data was high, and we knew it would be. Data supports 50 basis point hike in May. Okay, and that's part of what some of the concern has been in the last few days when you saw some of the sell-offs. And maybe more in June and July. Okay, but this is the part of the headline that I saw. We believe we are at peak inflation. We are at peak inflation. So what he is saying is that he believes that inflation isn't going to go up any higher, right? He doesn't believe it is. The only tea leaves that I see is the supply chain disruptions currently in China and how that potentially could ripple here to the States. That's the only thing that I'm saying that maybe, when I saw that headline, I'm like, oh, wow, great, peak inflation. Interest rates are going up. They're going to try to control inflation. And then I saw that and I was like, ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Okay, so speaking of inflation, I saw this headline out of Amazon. Amazon is starting to charge sellers, not buyers, but sellers, okay, a 5% fuel and inflation surcharge. Yeah, so Amazon is going to start doing that 5% increase. It's not permanent, it's going to fluctuate. And the surcharge will apply to all product types, such as non-apparel, apparel, and small and light items. And this article also in Seeking Alpha was also highlighting the surcharges that other companies were doing. So like UPS, they highlighted, had implemented a fuel surcharge of 42 cents. FedEx had applied a fee of 49 cents. And even Uber Technologies, UBER, they also had announced surcharges as well. So yes, we're seeing inflation there as well as the cost, right? The cost for transportation, fuel and transportation increase. So we are seeing more price increases coming down the pipeline there. Now, isn't it ironic? Okay, and I put this in because Bed Bath & Beyond had earnings this week as well, and they blamed an unexpected fourth quarter loss to slowing sales on a global supply chain disruption and weakening consumer confidence. Okay, so that's what they said. That's what they said. But what's interesting, and I also think personally, and I feel, right, that it also has to do with the industry rotation, right, of the consumer. Like you see very strong travel. You see very strong travel demand. And you actually see that, right, from Delta. Delta Airlines had really great earnings. They say that they will have strong growth with a potential boom in summer travel. And if you remember, we actually talked about travel and airline stocks and ETFs from my 331 show. So if you want to check that out, definitely do. All of the recordings can be found on this link right here. I'm putting it in the chat. There you go. So you can actually watch all of my past episodes from my website as well. Okay, so but going back to what I was saying about sort of, an industry rotation, I saw this headline out of Women's Wear Daily. And to me, it shows there's just a weakening in consumer interest in certain products. And this is shown by Hermes International. They recorded a 27% jump in Q1 revenue at constant exchange rate, citing strong performances in Europe and Americas. That doesn't sound like weakening consumer confidence. Luxury products, 27% jump. And not only that, but LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, right? They kicked off their earnings season with figures showing the U.S. driving luxury growth in the early months of 2022. And so they had this quote in there from Hermes chairman. The strong growth in sales at the beginning of the year reflects the desirability of our collections and the confidence of our customers in our arsenal and our artisanal, and responsible approach. Yeah, so demand for luxury good, demand for travel up, Bed Bath & Beyond down. But when I was looking at the Delta Airways, headline, I actually did a little bit of an internal check. Okay, and I do this frequently when I'm thinking about getting involved in an investment, right? And I said to myself, okay, this weekend, spring break, right? My kids are with their dad, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should go somewhere. But then I looked at the airfares. I looked at the airfares. I looked at the hotels, and I'm like, those are really expensive. Maybe I'm just going to wait it out a little bit and I'll go away later, right? And so what I do, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a fire pit. I bought a fire pit. I am going to go to Home Depot and buy flowers for my garden instead. So I'm starting to sort of invest and consume products for my outdoor living, right? Making a nice homey feel for my potential staycations. And I really did the same thing for Memorial Day. I was looking at the flights. I have the kids that weekend. I'm like, you know what? Maybe we'll go away. Again, looking at the flights, looking at the hotels. I'm like, goodness gracious, these are really expensive. And I'm like, I'd really like to have an outdoor dining room set. Outdoor dining room set, vacation. Dining room set, vacation. So my own internal, industry rotation and product rotation was like, maybe I am rotating out of travel because it is overpriced and back into home consumer products. But I'm sorry, Bed Bath & Beyond, I'm not going to be shopping there. I am going to be shopping, guess where? At HomeSense, owned by TJ Maxx and Wayfair. Yeah, those are like and Joss & Main, also owned by Wayfair. Those are like my go-tos for outdoor, tchotchkes and whatnot. I love those stores. So that was my own internal check after I saw these headlines. I'm like, let me just feel how I'm feeling about all this. And you can do it too, ladies. Like, your gut really will give you insight, and how you are consuming will give you a lot of insight for trends coming up as well. Okay, so moving on here. Speaking of shopping, guess what? I think plastic bags are the new smoking. Plastic bag ban here in New Jersey starts May 4th, ladies. Yes, so make sure you have your recycling bag, your recycled bags to go with you. Yes, we are no longer a plastic bag state. With that said, I saw a really, really cool headline on Trade the News today. It is a collaboration between Sealed Air Corporation, that's SEE, and ExxonMobil. And this initiative is really cool. So let me read it to you. So they announced today their collaboration on an advanced recycling initiative, the first of its kind in the US. This project recycles flexible plastics from a food supply chain and remakes them into new certified circular food grade packaging. Isn't that great? I love that. Just think of all the plastic waste from food products, right? And what I really love, right, is that when you see trends like super high oil prices, a lot of plastics are made from petrochemicals, right? You see companies saying, oh, we need to figure out ways to make the same products, but not and save cost, right? Because they're all about their margins. I love the fact that recycling can potentially be less expensive. And that's probably why, and I hate to say that, that's probably why there's this push, right? There is this push, just like the push in EV right now. There is a golden era in recycling, right? And socially sustainable companies. And so when you're thinking about ESG, these are the type of headlines that I see and I go like, good for you, company. Thank you for doing that. And that also makes me think, maybe I want to investigate this company. I had never seen this Sealed Air Corporation. It's not on any of my lists, but I happened to watch ExxonMobil and this headline came across. And now I'm going to be adding it to my list of my identifying investment list or my watch list. And I'm going to start looking at it a little bit. I'm going to start researching it. And because I saw that they are making a difference and I really like what they're doing here. So that is another way that you as a woman can put your money where your mouth is and say, you know what, I am going to support companies that are doing good things for the environment. So yeah, moving on here, we are at 10:37 and it wouldn't be a day without more Elon Musk drama. Have you guys heard about this? Have you guys heard this Elon Musk drama? Okay, so if you remember, right, last week we talked about this. He had taken a substantial, he had bought a substantial amount of Twitter stock. They had offered him a board seat, but the board seat actually gave him a cap at 14% of the amount of stocks that he could buy. So what he said was, oh, you know what? I don't want to join Twitter's board. No, don't want to do that anymore. Right? He doesn't want to do that anymore. Now a follow-up headline says that Twitter confirms receipt of unsolicited, non-binding proposal of $54.20 a share in cash from Elon Musk. Right? Yeah. So he wants to acquire Twitter. How about that? It's an all-cash deal and he wants to take it private. He also said that this is his final offer, and if it is not accepted, he would need to reconsider his position as a shareholder. And this is kind of crazy, right? He says he's going to need to reconsider his position as a shareholder. And guess what's going to happen? If he's going to start tweeting, I'm selling, my stocks, guess what's going to happen to the stock price? Yeah. So yeah, Elon, you got some, you're flexing there. You're definitely flexing. But speaking of Elon and his company Tesla, he is getting some competition from Ford. And I kind of saw this headline and I thought it was kind of funny. So it says, this article says, America's favorite truck is about to test Tesla's dominance. With this month's release of the F-150 Lightning, Ford hopes to electrify new and traditional truck buyers alike and eventually replace its industry-defining gas product line. And guess what? You'll never guess what their hot selling item is. So they're like, you know what? We're going to, in order to like sell this thing to the consumer, we have to come up with a gimmick. We have to come up with something that's really gonna like get people interested. And they come up with a frunk. A frunk. Can you guys guess what a frunk is? A frunk is a front trunk. Yeah. So yeah, we are now hearing this new term of frunk, and they show like a tailgate in the marketing material. It's like they're camping and they have extra storage in the front. Yeah, I love it. So yes, you heard it, frunk. Yes, the front trunk. Speaking of electricity, I saw this really intriguing bit about copper. Yeah, you need copper for electricity. And with all these build outs of infrastructure for all the EVs that are coming down the pipeline, you are going to need a lot of copper. Okay. And I got this out of Bloomberg's 5 Things to Start Your Day. I have to admit, it is one of my favorite free newsletters every morning. If there is one email that I read a day, every day, if I could only read one, it would be 2. There would be 2 emails actually that I would read. But the number one would be this Bloomberg 5 Things to Start Your Day. I love it. But they were talking about one of their odd lot podcasts with Goldman's top commodity strategist, Jeff Curry. And he had this to say about copper. He says, I would agree copper is likely to be the tightest commodity we will ever see. Now it's much tighter than what oil was during the 2000s. Let me remind you, oil went up 7 times in the 2000s. Our forecast is 15,000 a ton on copper. But no matter what technology you use, you're going to be using electricity. And the only thing that can conduct electricity, given the rules around the periodic table and the rules of chemistry, is copper. Yeah, is copper. So he goes on to say, not only is copper going to be incredibly tight, it's absolutely essential if we're going to electrify everything and move more energy use off oil. So it's going to be the tightest commodity we'll ever seen in a big deal. Yes. You know what, Kendra? I know that, for example, GOLD, I just saw their earnings come out this morning. They have copper that they mine, and they also have gold. And actually, they have an aspect of it in there as well. You know what? I think that next week I'm actually going to look into more copper. How about that for you guys as well? But that's something that just comes off the top of my mind. Thank you so much, Kendra, for asking that question. Thank you so much. Also, more in green energy news. Bitcoin solar project. Okay, so Block, which is formerly Square, and Blockstream, which is a longtime Bitcoin company, have agreed to co-finance a pilot project to mine Bitcoin off the electric grid in an all solar facility. And I don't know if you remember this, but a long time ago, well, not so long time ago, maybe it is a long time ago, I don't remember, but Elon Musk talking about the Musk. Oh my gosh, I almost got, never mind. I'm talking about the Musk. We could say musket, you know, he's like, big, ha. No, that was pretty bad, actually. Ha. Yeah, I cracked myself up. Anyhow, so Elon Musk had actually said if Bitcoin could get their act together and be able to make sustainable Bitcoin, that he would be interested. So I don't know if he saw this headline. Maybe we should send it to him, that they are trying to mine Bitcoin off the grid. So you know what? We hope that they will be able to do it. Oh, and what's interesting here, now that I'm looking at the bottom, listen to this. According to an interview with Blockstream's Adam Back on CNBC, The new facility would be a 12 million project built using Tesla technology. Yeah, see, I knew there had to be an Elon Musk undercurrent. There just had to be. Okay, so I have two headlines that I'm going to talk about right now, and I'm wondering how you guys feel about this, okay? Because I see both sides of the equation here, and I can see both sides. And I'm wondering how you guys feel about it. So I am going to talk about it. I'd love to see your comments in the chat. Feel free to email about them, message me on social media. I would love to hear how you're feeling about these two headlines. The first one was actually from the beginning of April. And it says the US is ending its pandemic border rules, and it could mean a surge in migration. Now, the reason why, so of course you have a surge in migration, which is really difficult to manage, right? And I feel strongly for, the frontline border patrol that that have to deal with these types of situations. But at the same time, I have to admit that this is also well timed to coincide with farming season, right? So we have significant labor shortages, right? We have inflation on food prices. We probably have farmers going, oh my goodness, we're growing all this food. How are we going to harvest it? How are we going to get it to the grocery stores? So I have to admit that this is sort of really well timed with not only farming season, but also travel season, right? The hotels need low skilled labor for cleaning, for restaurants, for cooking. So like there is a huge demand for the low skilled jobs, right? So I can see both ways. These jobs need to be filled. These companies, these mom and pop shops, these companies, these farms, they all need the labor, right? To keep prices down, because that's another part of the equation that is causing inflation. But, I also see the whole immigration side of things. So how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? I'd love to hear. Go ahead, chime in the chat, or even email me, ping me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Now, another headline that I was like, oh wow, this is an interesting conundrum. So this is out of Seeking Alpha, and it says consumer product giants face employee backlash in Europe over Russia business. Okay, so the three companies that are actually, there's quite a few here, and a lot of them are consumer staple companies. So you have Mondelez International, that's MDLZ. You have Nestle sourced here, that's NSRGY, PepsiCo, PEP, and they're all facing pressures in Europe from employees over decision of consumer products to keep their businesses functioning in Russia. Okay, so this is their logic behind that. They have stated they are still doing business in Russia, and this also includes companies like Unilever, UL, and Procter & Gamble, PG, and they have stated they are still doing business in Russia because they are selling necessities, again, staples, like diapers or milk that everyday Russians need. Nestle is also reporting still selling essentials in Russia, but donating profits to charity. Okay, so employee groups in Eastern Europe have asked the consumer products company for greater transparency on which goods are being sold in Russia. How do you guys think about that? How do you guys feel about that? I definitely have conflicting feelings, right? I definitely do, and I'd love to hear everyone chime in on that thought. Okay, so we are here at the end of our broadcast, and I love to conclude with a quote of the day to leave you with some inspiration. So my quote of the day is from William Arthur Ward, and the quote is, "Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning." Let me say that again. Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning. And that is my wish for you, to let your candle burn bright No matter who puts you down, let it burn bright. Have that confidence. Let it burn bright. Keep your head up. The best investment is in yourself. Keep your mind sharp. Keep learning. Keep improving yourself. And should you wish to take your investing journey outside the coffee talks, come see me in my panels, my workshops, and of course, my May classes are scheduled. So definitely check them out. I'm Jessica Perrone, founder of HerFinIQ. You have been watching the Her Investing Coffee Talk. May the markets be in your favor. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We made 1,000. We made 1,000. We made 1,000. Thank you so much. Bye now.